Hi and welcome back to the channel. My name is Norf, I am from London, and this week we conclude a 3-part series where first we looked at how do you gain and keep confidence during your online interview. Second, we looked at interview questions and how to successfully answer interview questions, even the difficult ones. And this week we finish up with my 7 top tips to ensure that your CV is utterly outstanding. So if you're ready, let's get started. A CV, curriculum vitae, shouldn't be confused with a resume. CVs and resumes historically were very, very different. Your resume would simply be the summary of your CV. A resume would typically be 2 pages long versus a CV, which would be anywhere from 3 to 10 pages long. Whew, that would be a big read. Your CV effectively is a historic roadmap of your professional journey, which will include everything that you've learned, your experiences, your skill, and who you have worked for. The first thing you need to look at is the format of your CV, and CVs these days will all take a particular format. And it starts, believe it or not, with your name, your location, your contact details, and if you've got one, a short HTML link to your LinkedIn profile. The next part of the CV format should be your personal summary. Spend some time crafting this personal summary. It should be anywhere between 5 and 8 lines long. Your personal summary shouldn't be an entire encyclopedia, but it should give the recruiters just enough to pique their interest and read on. Next, on your CV, you should put down your key skills and work experience. I would recommend putting down 2 to 4 of your previous jobs because you want to ensure that your CV sticks to that magic page number of 2. Following your key skills and work experience, the next thing that you want to put down is your education and formal qualifications. These will include GCSEs, A-levels, and any formal degrees that you happen to hold. For me, I would also consider putting in any other qualifications that you hold that are outside the formal qualification route. And these might be certificates held through formal training bodies or anything else. It's also worth putting in, should you be a first aider for example, drop that qualification into this section as well. The next section would be relevant experience, and it may well be volunteering, for example. So one of the things that I used to do is I used to be a volunteer at a hospital radio station. So I would put that information inside this section. And then last but by no means least, recruiters want to see that you're not a robot, that you are actually a human. So in this last section, I would put in your hobbies and interests. Keep it brief, but put in your hobbies and your interests. The second thing is you want to ensure that you've got alignment with what's on your CV and what's in your LinkedIn profile. You'll find that recruiters and AI will be going through your LinkedIn profile to see if those 2 things align. If they don't align, you might have a bit of a challenge. If you don't have a LinkedIn profile and you're serious about landing that job or getting that role, I would seriously recommend creating a LinkedIn profile. The third thing is, whatever job or role that you've decided to pursue, make sure that your CV is tailored and relevant for the job that you're applying for. Top tip number 4 is consistency. Make sure that your CV looks uniform on both pages. There is nothing worse than having a look at a CV where it's perfectly formatted on one page, but it's poorly formatted on another page. Speaking of consistency, ensure that it is free from spelling mistakes and is also grammatically correct. Tip number 5 is making sure that your CV stands out by just a tiny little margin. Most people will agree with me and suggest that using black and grey colours inside your CV is perfectly acceptable. But for me, in order to make your CV stand out by a tiny margin, I would recommend using colour. A little bit of colour. Make sure it is super subtle. Tip number 6 is socials. Make sure that your social profiles are all in alignment. You'll find these days that because of the internet, recruiters will use that, and AI, in fact, will also use that to get a fully rounded picture of you. They won't just go to your LinkedIn profile, they may well look at your social profiles as well. My 7th and final tip would be to avoid putting your full postal address at the top of your CV. I would highly recommend just putting in the location. So what I mean by that is the town or the city that you live in, and then the county where that town or city resides. So it may well be Poole in Dorset, or it could be Canterbury in Kent. And that's it for this week. Those were my 7 top tips. Ensure that the format of your CV follows the correct form. Tip number 2, make sure that there is alignment between the contents of your CV and your LinkedIn profile. If you don't have a LinkedIn profile, I can highly recommend getting one. Tip number 3 is to make sure that your CV is relevant for the job or the role that you're applying for. If it means that you have to keep updating your CV, do so. Tip number 4 is consistency. Make sure design-wise your CV looks identical from top to bottom. Ensure that it is free from spelling mistakes and also it's grammatically correct. Tip number 5 is to make your CV stand out. Feel free to use black and greys, but personally I would add just a tiny little bit of color. Tip number 6 is your socials. Remember, recruiters and AI may sift through those just to get a rounded view of the person that they're looking to bring in for an interview and potentially give the job to. And tip number 7 is to avoid putting in your full postal address at the top of your CV. Your general location will suffice. And that's it for this week. Thank you so much for stopping by. Let me know in the comments below what other tips you use with regard to making sure that your CV stands head and shoulders above everyone else. Remember to hit the like and subscribe buttons, and be sure to hit the bell notification so you don't miss out on when I upload brand new content to the channel. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you next time.